business community, and there were First Nations people, and there were blue-collar people, and white-collar people, and academics, sometimes in a group, and sometimes just in one-on-one over lunch. And what we found in the end, you could make a link between all of the things they were most proud of, and all of their sort of inciting incidents. And there was something in common where my brother's friends, who often are electricians and boilermakers, they don't talk about the Fringe Festival being the thing they're most proud of in Edmonton necessarily. They like the Fringe Festival, but they're really proud of BioWare, and they're really proud when they go to the United States and they see Stantec somewhere, or Leadcore in Paris. I was in Paris and I saw a Leadcore sign. Leadcore's from Edmonton. Or you know Shaw and Telus, they were built here. Those things moved away, but they were built here. They were this one thing after another, small or big. Even this guy who makes the best artisanal yo-yo string in the world lives in Edmonton. And if you know that, you're proud of it. So what we found is the link between all of the things that Edmontonians were most proud of was this, we made it here. And I spoke to the historian laureate of Edmonton, and she said, oh yeah, that's absolutely true. If we don't grow it, we don't own it. That's an Edmonton thing. And we're hearing so much of this, and that thing that binds theater in Edmonton and a kooky video game company and these gigantic private corporations, there was something in common. We tried to think about how to frame it. How does it link to our history? This is one of the oldest places on the continent, and people would come here from all over the place. They found things here on the Rossdale Flats from all over the continent. This was a place to come and trade, to prosper, to build something, to make something, to change your life in some way. And so we thought, if that's our history and our mythology, how can we use it? The Boilermakers and electricians, that time I met them, we were right in the middle of the arena stuff, and one of them put up his hand and said, here's the thing about Darrell Cates. He grew up in Edmonton, loving the Oilers, and all he'd ever want to do when he was a kid, a poor kid, they weren't even rich, was be involved in the Oilers in some way. And then you know how that company built. Him and his dad, they mortgaged their house, second mortgage on their house, and they bought their first pharmacy. And then it got to be kind of successful. Oh man, then it went down. And everyone had to help them. They had to borrow money from their friends and max their credit cards. And then they made it successful again after the crisis was over. And then they bought another one. And then they did another second mortgage on their house. And they bought another one. And slowly they built this thing. And now they have 1,800 pharmacies in Alberta and 15,000 around the continent. I was making notes as he was speaking. Everyone, yeah. And if they'd only remember with building this arena thing, that's how you make stuff in Edmonton. You just go for it, and you get a team together, and you ask that team for help, and you build it together. We build it together. That's how it works. And I was making notes. Everything he said was wrong about Darrell Cates. That's not at all the Cates Group story. But he was kind of applying Edmonton mythology to the Cates Group and wanting Cates to be heroic in an Edmonton way, I thought. And I really loved that. What they came out of it was, Edmonton's slogan ought to be, let's get her done. There just ain't a better place to get her done. And by then I'd already spoken to them a bit, and they thought this works in culture, this works in social initiatives, this works in business. I mean, a lot of people would bring up the Alberta Avenue revitalization, which has happened mostly really through the arts, but it has been a bottom-up thing. There's something about the bottom-up, build it here, that works in Edmonton. And then ideally, when you're most proud of it, it leaves Edmonton and takes over the world in some manner. It achieves success in other places. That's the glowing Edmonton feeling. And so when we finished all of these interviews, we tried to put it together, and we made sort of a one-page document. And there is a group in Edmonton, and Ken is part of it, a task force on the city's image and reputation. And they wanted to go at this stuff. We had pitched them on this idea, different than the usual agency approach. And so Sean and I, my business partner, we really did it as volunteers. No one paid us to do it. We wanted to be paid, but we weren't paid. But I'm glad we weren't, because then it wouldn't have been Edmonton enough somehow. Because now we can do something with it, and I think it's true. So I've been going around and talking to people about this and testing the idea on them, seeing if it works in their realms, sort of realm by realm. Because the steel fabricators, Wayward Steel, the biggest steel fabricator in North America, they built Las Vegas, from Edmonton. They just glow with this idea. And if we're going to do something for the city's reputation, it can't just be the creative class types. It has to also be, the students coming out of NAIT, and we have to bring energy into it in some way, in an authentic way, and not in the Calgary way, which is different. For example, they're a nice they're a nice city to bounce ideas off. We wanted to make sure what we were finding wasn't just universally good. So we went to Calgary and did some interviews with Calgarians. And one of my friends who works in the energy industry, we were having a drink, and he said, my proudest day as a Calgarian was the day the front page of the Globe and Mail was Imperial Oil moved its head office to Calgary. And he teared up a little talking about how he felt that day and how his decision to live in Calgary was absolutely reinforced by that day, and how emotional it was. And I just thought, it's so not Edmonton to kind of import a thing to make it your own and feel a glow of success because they came here. We successfully brought an indie to town, but no one wanted it because we didn't start making soapbox racers in 1973 and slowly build it into this thing that all Edmontonians felt was part of their hearts in some way. And you do see the successes and failures in Edmonton follow that pattern a little bit. We have found, and of course, we're juicing things a little bit, but I think it is true. And the reason this is so important for theater is this is, as you know, an unusually good theater town. And I think the Austin music thing, you can think about Edmonton on the theater side. It's our strength, and it means something, the fact that it is our strength. And you all know how the Fringe started, with a guy having a bit of money to spend and just thinking, well, here's some audiences that aren't being audiences at the moment because the season hasn't started. And here's some artists, professionals, and amateurs. Maybe we can smash them together into this funky little neighborhood that needs help. And there's something about this that worked here. And it's been tried in other places, and it has succeeded more or less in other places too. But still, this is the place where the innovation happens in theater. I remember I was telling Liz Nichols this, I think a little while ago. I was in line, after leaving the Journal, I was in line for a play, just as a regular person, buying a ticket for a play as a theater fan, because I grew up as a theater fan, growing up in Edmonton. And this guy from London, England, was handing out playbills to his show. He's doing a monologue upstairs at the library, and he's handing them out. And then I heard him talking to someone about how he brought his thing here. Out of anywhere in the world, he could have done it, because he wanted to test it on a proper audience before he brought it to a big city. And he said, I don't know if there's a better place in the world to do it than Edmonton. You come to the Edmonton Fringe, you get a big audience. They're a real audience. They get this stuff. If they hate it, you'll know it. If the critics here are good, if they hate it, you'll know what that means. He was talking in a way that made me really proud of Edmonton, but also thought, is there a way to take that, which is maybe a 3, and turn it up to 10? And you think of what's happened in Chicago now, where it seems to me that a lot of the great theater moving to Broadway is being incubated or being in the Chicago laboratory. It's doing what it has to do before it goes into the bigger markets. And as you know, Edmonton is a great theater market now. We're such a great theater market that stuff can come here and it can thrive here. Cavalia, I don't know, it was here for, it seemed like 7 years. So we have that, but I think that if we start to feel too much like just a good market, we forget that what we're really good at and what people are proud of here, the reason they're proud of all of you, is we are good at taking an idea and moving it to the next stage. And I think there is a moment, as we talk to business leaders, cultural leaders too, social leaders, for some audacity in Edmonton, and maybe getting outside of the usual grant writing aspect of art and culture. Maybe there is a way to start building Edmonton as a theater incubator, among other things. Theater is one of our strengths. We might as well use it. We might as well pick a winner rather than spread out a whole bunch of money on potential losers. This is a theater town, and I think there's an opportunity at the moment to do, in this realm and maybe 10 others, something pretty extraordinary over the next 5 or 6 years. And of course, I've talked to Liz about this and bounced ideas off her. I know that Edmonton was that for quite some time, where if you wanted to take an idea and have it grow, if you're a playwright or an ensemble group, whatever you are, this is the place to do it. I know that the Citadel's been helpful with that, and all of you are entrepreneurs. And this Make Something Edmonton campaign is what we're calling it. Make Something Edmonton for all realms. I think it should really start with areas of the economy like theater, because it's already happening here, and I think with some investment and with some care, it could really explode out of the city. That's all I wanted to say to you today. That's it, yeah. Did anyone have questions about